Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome, sensitive souls. Oh my goodness, has so much been revealed in my month off in August, and I'm back and I'm really seeing how this path is for those sensitive souls who want to create deep self-healing, to heal your burnout, your overwhelm from being a highly sensitive one, to reclaim the parts of yourselves that feel lost and trapped in a world you don't belong in and like you have a deeper purpose. Perhaps as a healer, teacher, or guide, even if that feels terrifying. And the archetypal remedies, which we are here to dive into today, which is my unique healing modality, have been really nudging me that this is first and foremost a healing modality to help sensitive souls heal, and as well as the formula to help women discover their soul purpose and become healers if that's what's aligned for them. And I'm so excited to share what is coming up in the path in this episode, because there are lots of new ways that you can begin to tread the path, which I do explain more about right at the end of today's particularly special episode, which really filled my heart to record live in our Secret Witch Society. Before we begin, I just wanted to let you know that there is now only just over a week left to join our Archetypal Rosa Crucible, which begins on the 19th of October. So if you are feeling the call, and you might be feeling that call simultaneously with some fear, then please do join us or reach out if you'd like to ask any questions at all. My heart is so full to be leading this journey again, and it was a journey that was requested again by some women who didn't make the first round, and it really is the tender first steps into learning how to heal yourself, opening to self-love, tending your nervous system and the body, and opening to your deeper possibility, so opening into full bloom like the rose for those women who really want to heal and discover their gifts, especially if you're wanting to be a healer. On the Secret Witch Show today, I am doing a deep dive into all things archetypal remedies. This is a very special episode for me, where I explore the art and science of my Archetypal Apothecary healing modality for sensitive women who are burned out and want to discover their purpose, and especially for those women who long to be healers, teachers, or guides, even if that feels terrifying. In this episode, I explore the three ancient healing wisdom bodies that combine to create my unique modality and formula, sharing what archetypal remedies are, why they matter, how they work, what the basics we need to know are when working with archetypal remedies, and how archetypal remedies complement other healing modalities to supercharge self-healing, as well as exploring some of the natural fears that come up when beginning the deep work of soul healing and actualisation, which are actually a sign that you are ready. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Secret Witch Show, Magical Ones. This is actually the very first episode that I've ever recorded live in our Secret Witch show, Secret Witch Circle group. And I'm super excited about this episode. I'm going to be exploring the particularly important topic for our path of the what, why, and how of archetypal remedies. And especially for soul reclamation, for healing, and in the journey of becoming a healer, teacher, or guide. So I'm going to be diving deep, essentially, into the way of the archetypal apothecary path in this episode, which is just like super exciting for me, because it's been the work of many, many years culminating into this. So yeah, really, really excited. But before we do, welcome to any listeners who may be new.
who may be perhaps listening to this episode to get a feel for the path of Archetypal Apothecary and our energetic remedies. The very first thing that I say to anybody who is kind of new to the show or this path is that all is welcome. And it really feels important to share that as we kind of venture into this episode, because essentially the foundation of the modality is welcoming back the parts of, or the pieces of us that we have feared, shamed and suppressed, because that is how true healing is really done. And it feels quite emotional to be here explaining my healing modality, because as I was just saying, it's kind of been like over a decade of a journey, and maybe even a lifetime actually. I want to think back to, you know, my experience with burnout and chronic fatigue was started when I was 10. So, you know, it's really been a lifelong thing of healing, being a sensitive little girl and sensitive adult. So yeah, it's very emotional to be kind of here sharing about the modality that's helped me heal, and also already even been impacting other women healing. So it's it's very much grounded in a wisdom that has transformed my own life and impacted others and made huge changes in their lives as well. And so it feels like almost like, yeah, quite momentous to be able to actually explain it, because it's also been perhaps the work of a lifetime to be able to explain it in a way that makes sense. So it's partly an ongoing work in progress, because there is a lot to the art and science of this unique healing modality. But I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to explain it in a way. I've been actually explaining it to a few people even this week, and which has been really helpful actually in thinking about what I wanted to share in this particular episode. But when I went to London yesterday, I was really bringing it alive for someone, just kind of speaking, you know, about it. And the people who are creating hubs and spaces for those who are really wanting to heal are also really, really excited about it. So it's really kind of building momentum. It feels like it's beginning to have a life of its own. So I'm feeling a little bit of a proud mum or proud she-wolf at the moment. So yeah, and I guess the first place that I want to start with this episode is really answering the question of what are archetypal remedies, and kind of diving into that. So why even do this episode? I think this is a modality, as I just mentioned, that doesn't perhaps make a lot of sense yet to people because it's fairly new. And I say new, it's been tried and tested for 3 years, and it's not really new as it's grounded in the technology of kind of the 3 ancient healing wisdom bodies that I'll share more about tonight. So that's really the why of this episode, like why we're doing this kind of nerdy deep dive into the art and science of archetypal remedies, so that you can begin to really understand them, understand what they are, how they can help you, who they're for, why they're important, and how to work with them. And the reason why as well is that I always often talk about the kind of results that we create in the past. So I talk a lot about healing ourselves, especially healing sensitive souls of their kind of physical burnout, their emotional exhaustion. I talk about loving ourselves more, opening to possibility, opening to a life of deeper meaning, and discovering your purpose, especially for those who are here to be healers, teachers or guides. But what I haven't talked about too much is the way. And I was chatting to someone the other day, and we were saying how it's really funny that we don't talk about the way often, because someone could kind of be like, okay, we can cure all of these things, and then the way to curing those things could be like some strange drugs, and you'd be like, well, hell no. So it's really important to actually know if the way is something that is aligned for you. So I'm going to talk about the way of Archetypal Apothecary. And what is Archetypal Apothecary? Well, what came to mind when I first thought about this was it's a phrase that nobody can say because it's such a tongue twister. So Sol could really have given me an easier phrase than Archetypal Apothecary, because it's just literally, if one word doesn't trip them up, the other one does. So first and foremost is that, but actually what the deeper expression of it is it's also a unique healing modality. And it's a healing modality that is really essentially a combination of the 3 ancient healing wisdom bodies that I'm just going to speak to in a moment. And it's a healing modality that helps you to learn to channel and work with what I call archetypal remedies for deep self-discovery and self-healing, or soul healing and actualization. So who is it for? Who it's for is essentially sensitive souls, women who are feeling like they have lost parts of themselves, who feel burned out, overwhelmed, feeling stuck in this mundane life that just doesn't suit them, trying to fit into a box that they don't fit in, yet they know deep down, even if it terrifies them, that they're actually here for something more, some kind of more meaningful purpose. I'm just just seeing more people joining in the group as we're doing this live, which is gorgeous. So yeah, these are the highly sensitive souls who run around looking after everyone else first, yet are kind of really deeply in need of their own nourishment. So they've maybe shamed themselves for just how sensitive they are. They've always been sensitive to everything, right from a child. I'm thinking back to my own experience of like having to cut the labels out of all my clothes because it was just too much on my skin. So sensitive to noise, textures, tastes, smells, and other worlds. And they've shoved that down, feeling inadequate, feeling unworthy, feeling like a failure because they didn't fit into society's kind of normie expectations. And they may or may not also know, or they might suspect, they're here to be healers, teachers, or guides. There's this just deeper sense of like, I've got this deeper purpose that I'm here to live out. Though, as I said, that largely equally feels terrifying, which actually can often stop women in their tracks, this fear. But it's actually a sign that that's what you're here for. And if that is the case, that you're feeling that fear, it's also a sign that there's still some healing to do for yourself first. So this is why I've developed the way for these women, grounded in my decade of experience of becoming a healer and guiding other women into their healing gifts. And it's the way that guides you into deep healing and reclamation of your sensitivity as a gift, and of loving reclamation of the lost parts of yourself, so you can reconnect to your wholeness and live your soul's purpose. And I've seen recently that the way is both a healing modality in its own right, and also provides a formula. So first and foremost, it's a healing modality because both sensitive souls and those who know that they are here to be healers need healing. And we're going to dive into kind of essentially tonight, we're going to dive into the healing modality of the archetypal remedies of the path. It's also worth presencing that it's part of a wider formula for sensitive women to learn to become healers, teachers, light workers, and guides that this world needs. So if that is what you kind of discover, or you might already know that that's what you're here for, this is kind of, that's also what it does. So it's like healing modality first and foremost. I'm going to talk about the 3 steps of that and a formula, and which is very much grounded in my decade of embodied experience of becoming a healer and guiding other women into becoming healers too. So talking about 3 steps, this kind of like formula and healing modality, the 3 steps in essence of the whole archetypal apothecary path are healing first and foremost. So that applies to any sensitive woman who wants to, heal herself and discover her purpose. And that's very much around like what the healing modality that we're going to dive into tonight. The second part of the path is all around discovering our gifts, discovering what our medicine is, discovering who we're here for, what our purpose is. If we're a healer, discovering, what our particular unique expression, what our particular archetypal remedy is. And then the third layer, the third step of the path, is all about expressing that into the world. So that is more for healers, women who've decided, I'm here to be a healer and I want to express that into the world. So it's like 3 steps, which offers that formula. And within those 3 steps, there's 8 elements, which is really that kind of journey of how we heal. So there's the opening. So we have to open our hearts to be able to heal. The embodiment, which is very much around tending our nervous system, going into our body, reconnecting to body, because that is what has the wisdom as to how we heal. The third element is soul alchemy. This is very much around discovering that discovery piece of like, who is our soul here to be? invocation, which is very much around invoking the archetypal remedies that I'm going to be speaking to tonight. And then self-illumination, which is that piece around like inner child work, seeing what our shadow is, seeing what our patterns are. And then the seventh one is manifestation. This is about learning how to create life differently, and majesty, which is about owning our power. And you don't really need to know at this point a lot about those, but essentially those just weave right through both the modality and the formula. But all of it, really, and this is what we're here to talk about, is really grounded in the work of what we call archetypal remedies. And archetypal remedies kind of have this lineage. Archetypal remedies are grounded, as I said, in these three ancient wisdom bodies that are hundreds of years old. And I'm going to explore a little bit more now on each of the traditional kind of roots of these, and then how we combine them uniquely in this path. So the three ancient wisdom bodies are homeopathic remedies, which I'll talk to, archetypal psychology, and energy healing. So for those of you who may not know anything about any of those, I will just go bring those alive a little bit, because it's really helpful to just have a kind of bit of a grounding in understanding what those are. So homeopathy is something that I have trained in many years ago, which has really always been a passion for me. And it's really kind of the lineage, the core lineage of my path. And as a thing, homeopathy is kind of like the original medical system that was developed by Hahnemann in Germany over 200 years ago. Now, traditionally, when we work with homeopathy, that is taken as little remedies, little white pills, and each remedy has its own kind of unique personality profile. So in traditional homeopathy, these energetic medicines are made from all sorts of things by highly diluting an original material substance in water, and the water essentially holding a memory or an imprint of its essence. If you want to know more about that, actually, a really great episode to listen to is the one with Veda Austin, who talks about the magic of water, because she does a lot of work around proving this water memory piece. So she's a great one to listen to if you're interested in that. And homeopathy really works on the principle, which you probably may well have heard me talk about, the principle of similia similibus. It's like a universal law of homeopathy, and it means like cures like. So essentially what that means is that illness will be cured by the same thing that caused it. So to give an example that really helps you ground that into your mind, it's like if you had a cold, for example, where your eyes are streaming, then the remedy onion or allium cepa would be a great remedy to provide relief for that. So because typically an onion would cause your eyes to stream. So like cures like, which is completely backwards to how we see healing, but very much unique to homeopathy, and something that I've seen over and over again work. Homeopathy has just changed my life. But essentially how it works is it stimulates what I call a healing response. So that's kind of like an activation of our own innate self-healing capacity for healing on all levels. So that's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or soul, which is really all of it. So so that's homeopathy. That's the kind of one of the lineage, one of the ancient wisdom bodies in the lineage. The second one is archetypal psychology, and this was kind of created by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. So he's kind of like the father of psychology, and he describes archetypes as universal inborn symbols of personalities that influence human behavior across cultures. So he believed that archetypes were kind of innate human knowledge that's inherited from our ancestors. So essentially these are all within us already. Archetypes are all kind of already within us, waiting for activation, and they represent universal patterns that are part of what he called the collective unconscious. So it's very much about the unconscious mind. So we work with them for deep self-discovery to make what is unconscious conscious again. So we can harness archetypes to identify where we've got wounds, where we've pushed parts of ourselves that we've rejected into shadow. And the idea is that we can kind of love ourselves back to the wholeness we were born with, rather than fixing ourselves, which is very much what our culture is taught to do. An everyday kind of example of an archetype, just to kind of, again, give that kind of grounding, is it could be the hero or the villain. We often see this in movies, in film. We see that there's always a hero, there's always a villain, and it gives us these kind of universally recognized patterns of behavior that help us to make sense of what is happening. Another that's a really great example for everyone here, or possibly for everyone here, depending on whether you're just interested in healing yourself, but you can still recognize this archetype, is the healer. So everyone can kind of conjure up what personality that would be, and we use it to see the kind of shadow and gold of those particular archetypes. Just going to pause a moment. And then the third ancient wisdom body is energy healing. I've been thinking about this one for a while, but it just very much feels true for me that this is like the third wisdom body. So the most widely known energy healing wisdom body would be Reiki, which is traditionally Japanese and means universal life force energy. So this is an approach essentially of channeling healing energy or life force or spirit or universal energy, or whatever word you want to use to describe this kind of higher universal natural intelligence. It's a way of channeling. And so again, this is done to like activate our natural healing process. So those three things are kind of combined and form the foundation of the archetypal remedies. So what are archetypal remedies? So the approaches that I've described and like just are essentially all kind of complementary therapies that people often go for healings in. However, when we learn how to work with them in our unique archetypal apothecary approach with this combination, they actually provide a deep kind of self-healing modality that allows women to not go to others to be healed, but to own their own power to heal themselves. And my own journey, this has really been kind of founded through my own journey. My own journey was very much one of visiting all the healers and even training in all the healing modalities that I could over a decade ago when I burnt out with chronic fatigue. And in truth, at the time, nothing really seemed to help. And I think that's something that a lot of women feel when they come to this healing work. And so archetypal remedies became a thing when I began to work with this Jungian archetypal psychology 3 years ago. And as I was doing so, I found that I would always kind of relate them to and see them as their kind of corresponding homeopathic remedy pictures. So, for example, I worked with the lover feminine archetype. So the lover is kind of very much around self-love, about kind of shining and magnetism and all of that. And I was like, oh, this is Naja. This is like the remedy of the heart, and Naja is a snake. So in homeopathy, so I would, instead of seeing the archetypes in their traditional kind of Jungian form, I would see them as like through the homeopathic lens. And so for a time, I would serve the archetypes until my guide pointed out, actually, this might be something that's time to honor as you know, with the archetypal remedies in my path. And I saw, as I started to do that, I found that women were kind of really, really activated by the remedies, and that channeling them had the same impact as people taking a homeopathic remedy without them even taking it, which is like magical to see. It's like, wow, this is like really, really magical. And yeah, this is when I kind of started to realize this is deeply magical for women who wanted to heal themselves. And I found that this was really the thing that was creating long-lasting change for both me. So this is tried and tested by me first, and also then with my clients. So it was really unlike anything else that was a healing modality that I'd experienced. And this really was how the Archetypal Apothecary healing modality was born. So yeah, it truly is just one of the things that, perhaps the only thing that I've known to create long-lasting change. So essentially, just to kind of recap, archetypal remedies are essentially like archetypal personality profiles that are grounded in this lineage of homeopathic remedies that are channeled and activated via energetic medicine rather than traditional homeopathic pills. And that's kind of as a model that is here to stimulate healing, activate these kind of inner parts of us that already know how to heal, and to kindle deep self-inquiry so that you can heal yourself, so that you can discover your gifts, you can actualize your soul purpose in the world. And yeah, that's essentially what they do. And they help us to begin to activate or initiate our own healing on all levels. So as I said, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, essentially reconnecting us to our soul's full health, full vitality, and unique purpose. They're also grounded in the wisdom paradigm that physical health is a manifestation of our deeper underlying patterns, particularly for homeopathy. It's very much around seeing how things kind of express that are actually more deeply to do with other patterns. And so archetypal remedies can also help to reveal that. And I began to notice, just thinking about the question of like what archetypes have to do with remedies and what they have to do with energy healing, I basically began to notice that homeopathic remedies were archetypes. So you could describe the remedies, you could bring them alive as archetypes that are understood by the collective. So as an example, and this may be true for many women, phosphorus as an archetype homeopathically is the highly sensitive woman, the woman who's got fiery emotions, who burns out easily. She's the healer who's scared to use her gifts and shine her light. And homeopathically, phosphorus as a remedy is made from the substance on the end of a match. So when we think about the archetype working as a like cures like basis, it essentially is here to help women who burn out like a match. So archetypally, you can see that her personality is that she's so sensitive that she ignites immediately if she's struck by something, like that deep sensitivity, and explodes into flames. Instead of like being able to just kind of shine her light. And that is what the substance on the end of a match does. So phosphorus kind of became the first archetypal remedy because she really is who this apothecary is for. She's the sensitive, magical one. So how do we combine it? Well, as I said, we don't work with the homeopathic pills anymore. They're not needed. We work with these remedies as archetypes. So these are like profiles that people can use for self-inquiry into what we call their shadow and gold. So the fear, the wounds, and the golden expression of that kind of archetype. So we learn through the path to ask things like, where do I resonate with this personality profile? Where do I relate to the wounding of phosphorus? For example, burning out, being scared to shine my gifts. What patterns are showing up in my life? So, and that's very much about making the unconscious conscious. And I discovered that my particularly unique magic is to channel these remedies, and to do that, I bring them alive for people as a transmission. So people get, essentially, I call it dosed or served with the remedy, and it activates part of them. So this part of them that has been unconscious, and this aspect of them that is already within them, but just lying dormant, if you like, that remedy kind of gets initiated and begins to heal in the same way as if they had taken the pill. So that's how they become channeled as an energy healing. And I do that initially myself with our remedies until women can learn to begin to channel them themselves, because the beauty of this is that everything in the world is a remedy. So everything can be harnessed and worked with as a remedy. And the thing to also note here is that these remedies are alive, in essence. They have their own life force. So I think this is another piece that's really helpful to, and another way to think of them is kind of as spirits that guide us. So that's why we channel them. It's kind of, if you think of them as like spirit guides that are supporting us to access and activate deeper parts of ourselves that kind of lie beneath our little girl's fears. And when I say everything's a remedy, what I mean by that is we can work with the spirits of what I call different archetypal queendoms. It's like different categories of remedies. So we've got plant queendom, we've got animal queendom, we've got mineral queendom, we've got acids, we've got the imponderables, which is essentially like the esoterics, the things that we can't explain. So for example, is the moon. And we work with these different remedies in the different queendoms to kind of distill the personalities of the remedies to help us see aspects of ourselves that these archetypal remedies are really mirroring back to us that have until now been unconscious. And the work is really teaching women to learn to channel them themselves and be in that deep self-inquiry. So we activate archetypal remedies, and the thing is that you can learn to do this yourself. And I'm essentially here as a guide, as a channel, to help women to learn how to do this so that they have all the tools that they need to be able to heal themselves. And individually, when I think about them, although they're absolutely magical, like there's something missing if we don't combine these three wisdom bodies. For me, and I think this is why it's the thing that's made the most kind of lasting change, is this combination is just so potent. So for example, Jungian archetypes very focused on the mental, emotional, the psychological aspects that can really kind of miss, although it will largely help our physical healing, it kind of misses that there's this like physical healing part. And that's why combining this archetypal work with homeopathic remedies, which also have like this very physical healing element, is so potent. Because it is grounded in the idea that this paradigm that our mental, emotional challenges will also manifest physically. So when we combine the two, and we also combine it with energy medicine, like it's just potent medicine on all levels of healing. And really it's all healing and activating parts of ourselves to return us to who we were born as, to return us to our soul's wholeness. And I think that's, for me, why this matters so much. I'm just going to pause a second. Yeah, just had a little cough there. For those of you who aren't watching live with us and listening on the podcast. Yeah, for me, the archetypal remedies matter so much, because this is really about the true art of healing. And I shared a post the other day. I don't know if those of you who are listening have seen it, but it really was a post that summed it up, because archetypal remedies offer something that is so unique that no other path really does. And I was having a conversation, the post was very much around this. I was having a conversation the other day with one of my old guides. I called her my previous guides in the post, because I doubt she'd like to be called an old guide. But she's now a dear friend. Yeah, we're having a conversation in which we're talking about what had unfolded since I'd had a shamanic healing with her a few months ago. And I had been very much in, like, knowing how this works, you know, having been in the reclamation of this for a long time. I've been in the work since I'd had that healing. I've been in the work of reclaiming a lost part of my soul from young adulthood. And I'd found myself being kind of nudged back, called back to doing things from earlier in my young adulthood, like movement, particular movement pieces, yoga, music, and horse riding. And whilst we're having this conversation, something was illuminated that I've been seeing for a while about how healing isn't something to go to someone else for and expect a quick fix. It's about learning to integrate what comes up in our healings for ourselves. And this example of kind of going for the shamanic healing with Leanne and then doing the deep work is kind of like my living embodiment of that, of now having the tools to integrate the healings myself, which is very much being garnered from a journey of 3 years with guidance from Leanne in that deeper art of soul healing, and this kind of path that has been created from that. And so often we have this, culturally, we have this impression that we go to someone to be fixed, and we just have this one-off healing, which inevitably largely doesn't always work, and leaves women kind of chasing that next healing quick fix and outsourcing their power to others, often kind of with this idea that they're broken. And if we kind of interact with, and again, this is all innocently done because it's how we're cultured in society, but if we interact with these commonly one-off sessions this way, where we expect the other person to be doing the healing for us, which is typically how often people will work with homeopathy archetypes and energy healing and interact with them in that way, it will largely then leave us feeling lost, disappointed, and unchanged. And likewise, if you're a healer and you're listening to this and like, oh, that doesn't feel good, like there's this kind of piece around, like almost like I'm not kind of judging how people interact with healing. But as a healer, if you are a healer, there's gold here too, in the opportunity that we have to be able to interact with our clients differently for true deep healing in a way that invites them into their own deep work, their own integration. Because the truth is, and I think largely also collectively we all agree with this, is that we all have the power and the wisdom to heal ourselves. It's just that it's so easy to outsource that to other people. And really, this is the why of the deepest why of my modality, is that it really is teaching you to heal yourself and discover and serve your purpose. And this is a knowing that I've had ever since I've trained as a homeopath long ago, but it has taken a while to like become the embodied teachings of my path. And just again, being really clear, I'm not making other healing modalities wrong. So even traditional homeopathy, which is one of the kind of foundational things underlying my path, has been described as magic pills. So what I'm actually doing is exploring that often the way that we can innocently interact with these healing therapies is from the mindset of us being broken and needing someone to fix us, and quickly. And this is, again, a product of living in a mainstream world that conditions us into quick fixes. And in reality, the truth is, these healings really only ever activate our own inner healer and open the door and invite us in to do that, the kind of deeper work, the inner work of loving ourselves in the places that we've rejected. And there's a beauty in having those one-time healings, in that they point us to often the deeper work that's needed by us. And recalling the kind of many healing responses that I've had over the years that were left unintegrated because I didn't have the tools to know like what to do with what was coming up after a healing. I've taken lots of homeopathic remedies where things have bubbled up after that I didn't really know what to do with, which is why this path would help you to then know how to integrate that. And the key of that is that we often think that we're broken and we're never broken, or we're often walking around feeling immensely broken. And the true art of healing is to come to love all the messy, shameful parts of ourselves that feel like terrible, until we know that all of us is welcome. And that's really where true healing lies. This is the reclamation of those lost parts of our souls, the parts of ourselves that got fragmented, got shamed, got pushed aside through fear or guilt or whatever it is that's felt kind of shameful. And really the true art of healing is about deep self-love, inner child work, and this soul reclamation, which, as I mentioned, kind of ties back to those 8 elements, which is all part of the path. But this is essentially how archetypal remedies help us heal. And as hard as we try, because I know many women do, and I've done it myself, like I have tried so hard to outsource that, but it's just not possible to outsource that healing. And this is why I make it very clear that I'm not here to fix you in our Archetypal Apothecary healings. I'm inviting sensitive women like you who've usually burned out from a lifetime, even burned out of a lifetime of trying to be perfect and trying to fix themselves, to learn to heal yourself and love yourself home. And I love this, how I saw it. I was like, oh, it's an archetypal apothecary because I'm inviting you to learn to work with your own inner apothecary of energetic remedies so that you can heal and integrate things for yourself that no one else can. That really is like, it just sums it up. It's like we're activating your own inner apothecary of these energetic remedies. And this is such a key, unique aspect of our healing modality. And it's really very much why I keep choosing to walk into like bringing this into the world. And honestly, my heart feels so full for the women who have the courage to listen, to feel the truth in it, to listen to those kind of deep soul stirrings that are calling them to that path, to the path of self-healing or soul healing, and to tenderly lean in. Because the alternatives that they've been trying, often though they feel easier, largely haven't worked. And that, having the courage and the vulnerability to choose that, is not an easy choice in a world that kind of really widely offers us false promises of quick fixes, and not just even limited to healing, that this is happening all the time because our culture is literally fast paced. It just wants the next quick fix, the next quick fix. And it takes courage to choose integrity and truth. And largely, it's also not something that most people want to choose when it requires to learn to love parts of ourselves. It's easier to numb, it's easier to suppress and reject and ignore. That's why the quick fix route looks so much more appealing and feels so much more relieving. And again, innocently, this is, you know, I spent 7 years on the quick fix path. So I really feel where women are. And a key part of, again, another thing to speak to there is that this is why the journey into true healing, really, like, so much fear comes up as we begin to realize that we can tenderly step into this journey of healing ourselves. And this is why it requires such love and courage, and why it's often best done with a deeper support for integration initially, but not in the same way that's usually offered. So I realize it can sound a little bit odd at times when I'm saying, well, you're here to heal yourself, but that's best done with a guide. And it's not always the case, but largely, you know, but in order to learn how to heal yourself, there's that period of learning, like how to work with the remedies, how to actually go into healing ourselves. Like, there's tools and techniques that we need to learn. And often, by the time, it breaks my heart, by the time that women often reach this path, they can be doubting if healing even works, because they've been through all these quick fixes and they're doubting the need for a guide, because the guides they've had before largely haven't solved anything, because there's not been this interaction in a way of, like, yeah, owning our power to heal. And yeah, it's this kind of impact of quick fixes on women's trust of their own capacity to learn to heal themselves magically, more than anything, that breaks my heart most. And I know, because I was there as well, I really felt like, well, I just keep going round and round and round. And again, a woman, I was saying about this in the post, a woman asked me recently if I keep going in this path of healing, where I just get trapped in a never-ending journey of healing. And I thought about this, and my reply was quite simple, because I was like, it's really, like, straightforward. The truth is, in our work, the work in healing is never done. It's like, it's a lifetime that we're here to heal for. And nobody wants to hear that, first and foremost. So if you're like, oh my God, that's I don't want to be healing myself for a lifetime, but it's just the truth. Like, but if you keep going with the quick fixes, we will forever need a guide, because we're just relying on that guide to fix us. Whereas in the Archetypal Apothecary path, what I'm doing is teaching you to heal yourself. And that might take a little bit longer to learn to begin with, but then you've developed and you've got your own tools for a lifetime, and you know your power to use them. And I think that's really, there's so much truth in that for me. And it's just such an important thing to recognize. It's like, so many women have been burned by this quick fix approach, but there is another way if you are willing to trust yourself and to learn it, to when you're called. And if you are just kind of like slowly beginning to realize that you've been seeking a quick fix, and you're feeling that nudge to kind of truly learn to heal yourself in a fully supported and held way, then know that your heart is so welcome here. And there's just so much love. The part of you that has until now been outsourcing that, again, innocently, is something we're taught to do. Ultimately, what these archetypal remedies offer then, and the why of them, is the capacity for true self-healing, which is grounded in deep self-love, in wholeness, rather than the idea of being fixed. And yeah, we're just here to help you activate your own inner archetypal apothecary rather than relying on others to heal, so that you can learn how to activate, get in touch with the archetypal remedy state that's already within you and reclaim that lost part of your soul. As an example, just quickly, I'll talk to some others later, but for example, Archetypal Rosa, which is one of the first remedies in the path, helps you to get in touch with that kind of softer, tender, soul-paced, sensitive part of you that has been suppressed and lost due to wounding. And it's kind of very much around healing that part of you that feels like really tight in a bud and wants to open and bloom. Another example is like Archetypal Gold, and I'll go into this a little bit more detail later probably, but Archetypal Gold is like the reclamation of our power, gold being like the symbol of power, the universal symbol of power. Archetypal she-wolf, the unconditionally loving mother, the she-wolf, a symbol universally recognized as like this nurturer of her cubs. And archetypal Luna, so archetypal Luna is the moon. It's very much, you know, the symbol of all the things we can't understand, the reclamation of our magic, which can't be understood always. So yeah, just to give you a few examples there. And the how, let's talk about the how. Because, and when I say the how, I'm talking about the art and science really, is essentially, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. This is an important thing to speak to. I know we've already talked about onions today. This wasn't a podcast about onions, but if you imagine that you were born with this kind of whole core, you were born in this like beautiful, natural, archetypal remedy state that was completely whole before you'd experienced any other layers of wounding. And there's this kind of like, as we go through life, we build on different layers of this onion every time we experience a wound. And each time we experience a wound, there's this like fragmented part of your soul that's had you in a different archetypal remedy state. So you were born possibly as archetypal phosphorus. It's not always the case. There are other constitutions, but it's a common one for sensitive ones. So you're born as this beautiful, like open, sensitive, like magical, eyes wide open kind of archetypal phosphorus constitution, let's say. Which was like bubbly, full of energy, full of vitality. And then that's who you are. That's who you are at your core. And then perhaps something happens. So for me, like my dad left, maybe you had an experience of being abandoned, or you were traumatized by something else. And for me, like I created the story that I was powerless, I was helpless, I'd been abandoned, and very much like felt helpless. And that was like the next layer of my onion, this wounded layer, which is archetypal pulsatilla. So archetypal pulsatilla is like this state, this remedy state that I've gone into that's fragmented a part of my soul, that shamed myself for being helpless. And without healing that layer, I spent probably more years than I care to think about. I spent a long time walking around, still operating, still creating life from this repressed pulsatilla state that felt helpless, completely unconsciously, completely innocently. But that is like the next layer of the onion that I needed to heal. And so working with archetypal remedy pulsatilla in that instance will show you her themes of powerlessness, of helplessness, so that we can self-illuminate our patterns. So pulsatilla, just to give a bit of context, is a delicate flower that blows in the wind and wants to cling on to others for support. So she, you know, this kind of like helpless, wafting flower. She's beautiful, but she's like very sensitive, very delicate, like it really feels like she needs support from others. It's very representative of the plant's properties. So it's working with the archetype to illuminate those particular patterns that she has, so that we can then be able to begin to heal and choose differently, to reclaim the part of us that isn't helpless, because we were born whole, we were born as phosphoric, or whatever we were born as, the archetypal remedy we're born as. And in doing that, we return, as we heal these layers, we return to the wholeness that we were born with. And another thing to talk about here, there's another why actually, which I've missed talking about, that's really, really important. A really, really important why of the archetypal apothecary path, and that is that in this path, there is like, for those of you who may have been familiar with human design or gene keys or some kind of soul map element, there is a human design like element to the Archetypal Apothecary path, in that it provides a very clear map, a guide to our soul's unique path. And essentially our soul chose to come out here, to come here to live out these particular precise archetypal remedy patterns that you have been living out. So there are patterns, the remedy relationships between the remedies that can help us to understand ourselves and our soul path. And as we begin to illuminate what the remedies our soul came here to live out are, and we begin to discover our soul purpose, because our deepest purpose is often found in our deepest wounds. So there's 4 layers, and one of my clients asked me this question, and I said I'd speak to it in this episode around the layers of archetypal remedies. But in essence, it's in this way that archetypal remedies offer this clear roadmap for your healing and your soul path. So we all have 4 layers of remedies that need healing in order to really reclaim our souls fully, to kind of return to that core of the onion. And we can ascertain these. I'm working on something to help women ascertain these at the moment in a reading that I'm about to begin offering at some point soon, which provides a very clear roadmap to what needs healing so that you can fully know and live your purpose. And just to speak to, because obviously my clients are already familiar with some of this, but one of my clients asked me the question around the layers of archetypal remedies and said, can you share a bit more about the layers, especially our constitutional remedy and our soul remedy? So I'm going to speak to the 4 layers and tell you what they are and what the difference is between them, because I think it's really important to give this idea of like how there's a map really of the remedies that we're here to live out, and the patterns that we're here to live out and heal. So the first layer is the constitution layer. I've talked a little bit about that already. This is essentially the core of the onion. This is who we were born as, our kind of natural makeup, our predisposition, because phosphorus, for example, will have certain remedies that it's predisposed to living out. And it's like essentially who we are in our healthy whole constitution, who we were born as. So everyone has a constitution layer. Sometimes it's phosphorus for magical women, largely is. There may be other constitutions though, so it's not always phosphorus, but typically it can be. So that's the constitution layer. That's who we're born as. The second layer is the soul remedy layer. This is what I call the soul remedy layer. Now this is the unique remedy, the unique purpose we were born for. This is the archetypal remedy that tells us what is our deepest wound. Like it's found within the deepest wound that we came here to live out. And it's essentially our soul came here to live the expression of this pattern so that we could heal it and then go on to express that into the world. If you're here to be a healer, this is the layer remedy, the archetypal remedy, that you are actually here to heal and help others heal in your lifetime. So think of this one as almost like the most wounded layer of your onion in this lifetime. We're going to talk about onions all night at this rate. And the why of knowing this remedy is really important, because we're each born with this particular unique soul purpose. And if you like, we were born with this unique archetypal remedy. We're essentially like people are remedies. So we're walking around as this archetypal remedy, and that remedy, when healed for ourselves, becomes the remedy that we're here to serve to others. So what we heal in ourselves becomes our unique gift. As we kind of share from the healed scar rather than the wound, we activate this remedy in others who need that remedy, who are a little bit behind us in the path. That's if we're here to be healers. There are other ways that we can express that into the world. If we're not here to be healers, then we're just here to for some other unique purpose. Essentially, our unique purpose is to heal our soul remedy and then pass on the gifts of that, whether that's by being a literal healer or whether it's expressing the beauty that we've reclaimed from it in some other creative way. So I'm thinking of, say, women who wouldn't necessarily class themselves as healers, but they would contribute to the world in some other way, maybe by leading communities, maybe by making products. A great example of that is, I don't know if you saw my Instagram stories this morning, I received I ordered the most gorgeous aura mist from a woman called Laura's Dharma. Go check her out, she's amazing. And I received this beautiful package, and interestingly, as I was thinking about the remedy that she would be, I just realized she actually had rose in the box. She put like roses and lavender and all these gorgeous herbs, and like it was just divine. And my guess is, from the energy that she sent that with, it's just the most beautiful creative thing. She's not a healer, but she was sending healing in that box, in her creation. Like that was a pure soul creation. And my guess is that she is archetypal Rosa, and that's her soul remedy, and that she's journeyed with in her lifetime, reclaiming her capacity to be open to beauty, to be open to love, to be open to softness, so that she can pass that on down the line. So she may well not class herself as a healer, but her soul purpose is still grounded in that kind of core wound that she would have healed. And if you are a healer, this is why self-healing is so important and so required, because we're all essentially walking archetypal remedies, magnetizing other women into our medicine. And the more healed we become, the more easily we attract and activate healing in other women. It's like having a clear channel. If you're a clear channel of the gold of that remedy, that will activate healing in those who have that same remedy, who are in the shadow or unhealed version of it. And this is something I've seen so clearly, that is so potent to see as part of this modality. So yeah, it is, in essence, if you think of it like this, we're all energetic remedies activating each other. And this is why often you'll feel some kind of resonance with other like-minded souls. You know, like when you're in a room with like-minded soul, you're instantly kind of magnetized to them. This is the kind of principle that I'm talking about, like cures like, because you're remedies for each other. And essentially, just to go a little bit further into that, I see people, how others will see, say, herbs or essential oils. It's like people are the remedies. People are the remedies. And for women like you, like will cure like. So the more healing we can do of this soul remedy layer wound, and express the healed version of that into the world, the more we will attract others who need our archetypal remedy. And of course, if we don't long to be healers, then we still need to heal our core wound to be our full expression of whatever creativity that we want to do or we want to be. So that was the soul remedy layer. The third layer, and they're often is called the surface layer. These are surface layer remedies, and there are a few archetypal remedies that you tend to have in the surface layer. These are the kind of like other layers of the onion. So we can think of these as like the more superficial wounding patterns that we're here to heal. And these are often almost like blocking that clear channel for us expressing that deeper layer. So yeah, so that we can fully know, fully express our purpose. These are the layers that need healing, so that we can essentially live our potential. And there's the final layer, which is the fourth layer, which is the ancestral layer. So these are the ancestral wounds that need healing, so that we can live in the fullness of our soul's purpose. Again, typically these are the remedy states, the archetypal remedy states, or wounding patterns that are inherited, that are passed down the ancestral family line. And those are just, again, need clearing, healing to live our purpose. So in essence, if we do the work to heal on all of those four layers with the archetypal remedies, we can illuminate and become consciously aware of the patterns that are holding us back from our full possibility, from our full potential, from living our meaningful soul purpose. And we can heal them ourselves. So this is a phenomenal opportunity, and has been truly life-changing for me and the women that I've guided so far through this journey. And in terms of like just going to, I know I've talked a lot about the kind of the how there, but in terms of just the basics of the practical how, I'm not going to go too much into this, because essentially what we teach in our group crucibles and kind of needs more in depth. But in essence, just as a brief overview, the kind of practical how is we distill the archetypal remedy, and it's shadow and gold, it's wounding and it's gold, it's themes, so that we can kind of begin that deep self-inquiry process within ourselves. Like, where do we resonate with that particular remedy. We then create a channeling kind of activation ritual, like a transmission, to energetically choose to work with the remedy, in which we're essentially calling in the spirit of the archetypal remedy to guide us and activating the energy in our bodies. And yeah, it's just like really just, for example, in Rosa, again, we work with the spirit of archetypal rose, and as we do, they kind of tend to reveal things to us as we journey as well. So it's having eyes open to that. And that's kind of really the third part, is like inquiry, practice and ritual. So the integration piece of this is like really going into inquiry, really going into embodiment practices and doing deeper ritual work to work with the embodiment of this archetypal aspect of ourselves that we want to call back home. And again, that brings us back to those kind of 8 elements, working, you know, things like working with self-love, with nervous system tending, with inner child work, with shadow work, and many more other tools that are kind of woven into the path alongside the archetypal remedies themselves. And then you've got the integration. So that's, again, this piece around the deep work, being in the process of the deep work, noticing like what is coming up, working with that as it arises, as you have the kind of healing responses, or the material for liberation, I sometimes call it. So yeah, I wanted to just give you next, I'm conscious of time as well for this episode. I want to just give you some examples of archetypal remedies in our culture or mythology, or, you know, it's just some examples that you can, I've kind of already given you a few, but I'll just go into them a little bit deeper. So we've already spoken to archetypes in the film world, like the hero, the villain roles playing out in film, really easy to spot. I guess myself, a great example of my own reclamation is the remedies that I've worked with, and you know, the ones that I've seen that I've kind of we call them proving in homeopathy. Like we kind of see what happens as we work with the remedies, what comes up, what themes come up. And so I've proven many remedies myself and with other women as well, as they've been journeying with them. And the ones that I'm about to describe are the ones that I talked to earlier, but they're kind of the first layer remedies. They're kind of like the ones that we start to work with that really are all about reclaiming it, learning how to heal ourselves and learning how to reclaim our souls. So they all have their kind of universal symbols. So we talked about aurum. So archetypal aurum is gold. This is like the universal symbol. If we think about gold, it's a universal symbol of sovereignty in essence and power. Like the queen has a gold crown, had a gold crown. You know, it's very much associated with power. You have gold coins, so it's very much that money piece. And archetypal gold really is the representation of the loving transformation from our little girl or our maiden into adulthood. It's the kind of rise into our power and confidence. So that's a great example, really simply, of one of our archetypes, and how that kind of reflects patterns to you, like what can be seen about how you feel about power. I'm not going to go into loads of questions about that because I'm just giving you an overview, but those are the sorts of ways that we can begin to work with these archetypes. Archetypal Rosa we've talked about is the rose. It's the universal symbol of transformation from Titan, a bird, to feminine full bloom, softness, opening, beauty, really that kind of rise into that kind of lover, sensual, kind of soft period of our lives as a feminine being. Lupa is another great example, archetypal Lupa. So archetypal Lupa is essentially the homeopathic language for she-wolf. And she-wolf, again, is that universal symbol of that kind of primal wildness, like the wild woman archetype kind of feel of the mama wolf, the unconditionally loving wild mama to her cubs, and also a symbol again of the archetypal mother if we're talking about the feminine life cycle. And then we've got archetypal Luna, which is of course the moon, which is a universal symbol, as I mentioned earlier, of magic, of our kind of cyclical feminine nature, of the capacity to be with the unknown because magic can't be explained. So this is kind of like the archetypal wise woman, the magical one, and just those are just great examples. They're also the first 4 archetypal remedies that I journey with women with, because these are essentially the remedies that do help us to reconnect to our soul and learn to heal ourselves. And these are also the remedies that I've journeyed with to reclaim my soul and to reclaim my medicine, along with others. So others that I would have worked with are phosphorus that I've mentioned, just like the stuff on the end of a match, silica, which is clear quartz, stella, which is star, which is very much about radiance and being able to shine our light, naja, which is the snake. Yes, there's lots of other remedies. In fact, there's over 4,000 remedies that are proven homeopathically, but anything, as I said, could be a remedy. So there's yeah, so many different archetypal remedies. And yeah, I just can't, when I think about how homeopathy and these remedies have changed my life, it just brings me like so much emotion, because if I think about who I used to be, I used to feel really powerless, really helpless. And before working with these remedies, I'm thinking about the themes that I've journeyed with. You just feel this sense of feeling stuck, this deep kind of shy. When I was a little girl, I was so shy that I was called mute by a psychiatrist. And yet now, you know, you'll put me on stage and I'll be sharing my medicine with lots of women. I used to do the festival circuit and all sorts of things. So there's like been a real like transformation. Like I used to feel very lost. I used to feel very burned out from pushing and forcing my way through life in a corporate career. I'd people please, I'd put others before me and completely ignore my sensitive needs. And I remember also when I had chronic fatigue, was stuck in the same four walls with anxiety for a year. So to see that, like how these remedies, in whatever form I've been using them, whether I've been journeying with them homeopathically or as archetypal remedies, they've just transformed my life. And I just feel so emotional thinking about how, like, through journeying with this medicine, it's completely transformed my life to not only be able to create life magically, you know, traveling the world, sharing workshops, guiding other women into their own healing and becoming healers. Like, it's phenomenal. It's just not something that I would have felt was possible. So yeah, feeling a lot of love in my heart and a lot of gratitude, and feeling a sense of honor actually to be able to bring them into the world. And I do really feel that these remedies chose me to express them into the world, and it's like my deepest purpose. My deepest purpose is to bring them into the world. And yeah, there's been so much fear in that as well. So I want to normalize the fact that there's fear as well, and speak to a few of those before we complete. So I'm going to just speak briefly to some sticking points of where people can get stuck with archetypal remedies and working with this path. And I think the first one that came to mind when I was thinking about this before was this sense of like, women fearing that they're too sensitive, like their nervous systems aren't ready. And I guess just to speak to that a little bit, the whole point of this modality, this healing modality, is that it is literally built for sensitive ones, for phosphoric ones. So the important thing to know is that we go at your soul's pace. There's no rush. You're here to learn to honor your sensitivity. So for me to rush you through honoring your sensitivity would be out of alignment and integrity. This is about you learning to tend your nervous system. So just to speak to that, that's one of the places where women can get stuck with these remedies. That said, the other place where people can feel stuck is that these remedies in healing the layers can bring things up. So sometimes even because women are so sensitive, phosphoric women, sometimes even when they're contemplating a journey with an archetypal remedy, they're so sensitive to the energy that they can that remedy can start to stir things up that are wanting to be seen. I've had this happen when people have chosen and committed to working with an archetypal remedy in a crucible with me, and all of a sudden they start having a healing response before they've even actually worked with the remedy, before it's been served. And that's not to say that, you know, when you go into the crucible, it's going to be worse. It's typically just showing you where your work is. And again, we can, when we bring love to that, which is very much where Rose's medicine comes in, like there's a big part of learning to love ourselves through that healing response, or material for liberation, as I have called it as well. And this is in essence where we can start to experience patterns from our past that resurface to let us know that we're being called to heal, illuminate, and love these parts of ourselves. And I just want to presence that, because that can feel challenging. And sometimes women can think that it's a sign that they're not meant to do the work. And it's actually the opposite. Fear is like so welcome in this work, and it has to be, because the whole point of this work is to love the parts of ourselves that are scared and suppressed. So if you're getting things showing up from even contemplating the work, it's because it finally feels safe to be seen and healed. So I just want to share that, because fear is not a sign that you're not ready. It's paradoxically a sign that you are, because if you didn't have fear, then you'd have, you know, if you weren't ready, you'd have no resonance and no resistance. So the other thing that commonly comes up that I wanted to speak to is that, speaking about fear, there's often another common sticking point that comes up, and particularly when we think about starting to step into our power to self-heal, and that is the fear of our power. Either feeling that we don't have enough power to complete the journey, or feeling that we've got too much power and we're going to obliterate everyone with it. So again, both ends of that polarity can come up as both the fear of our power. And I always say, again, it takes deep courage to own our power and take responsibility to self-heal. And this came up actually the other day in our Secret Witch group, in which a woman shared that she really resonated with, I think it was, I can't remember which post it was now. I think it was the one I mentioned earlier, but she also resists the idea of taking responsibility to heal rather than looking to be fixed. And this is something that is so common for our women to feel. Like, so many women feel that kind of deep sense of both longing to heal themselves, but holding that kind of familiar paradox of like resonance and resistance. I think a couple of women commented on that post saying that, actually. And so it makes so much sense that we would fear that. Like, what I've noticed from my own journey and that of the women that I've guided is that this is why it's so vitally important to learn how to soften into self-love before we work with reclaiming our power. And this, as I said to her, is actually the exact reason why I serve Archetypal Rosa, which is all about softening into self-love, first, before, say, Archetypal Gold, which is about the loving reclamation of our power. So although that said, Rosa's medicine is brought in really throughout the whole path, because it's like so critical to the work that is, you know, even if you started with Archetypal Gold, Rosa's essence of love is in that. But it is very much like Archetypal Rosa is such an important remedy that sets the foundation of being able to love ourselves in the fear. And as we become more and more able to love the little girl in ourselves that innocently fears or resists taking responsibility, and again, this is largely because our little girl has been attempting to keep us safe based on these trauma layers that want love. Like, this is why Rose is one of the surface layer. All the remedies that I talked about are really the surface layer remedies that we kind of peel back first. Like, when we do that, that taking of responsibility to heal ourselves becomes so much more possible, but from a deeply tender place of love for ourselves. I feel like I've been talking forever, but I'm like so dynamically alive with it because I love it. So the other thing that came up as I was thinking about this, the place where people can get stuck, is this idea of like trust. And that is another thing. It takes real trust, predominantly of ourselves, but also of a guide and others. And usually the women who arrive at my door, being very sensitive, being very open, particularly because they've been open, the shadow of being open is often they've got this sense of feeling like somewhere along the way they've been ripped off by other healing modalities because things haven't worked. And so it's common to feel, for women, to feel this kind of fear of trusting another healing modality. And this can be a stumbling block from learning to heal ourselves with archetypal remedies, because there's that sense of like, well, nothing else has worked before. And I just, again, wanted to presence that, because this isn't like something that you have tried before. And not only that, but like all of you and all of that fear is welcome here. So if that is something that comes up for you, you are so, so welcome to share that. And I'm always here to love women in their fear, whatever it is, but especially that one, because there's so much alchemy and healing for a woman who is open and who doesn't trust because of that openness, because that openness has been at some point wounded. Like, it makes sense. The phosphorus woman is so open, she's wide open, and has experienced largely some wounding around that. And so, like, that is really like so welcome in this path and part of the healing. And it's really all a mirror for how we don't trust ourselves, if that is how we're feeling. So there's really gold to reclaim in that. Another fear that comes up for women, or a stumbling block that can happen when people start thinking about working with archetypal remedies, is that because often they have worked with other healing modalities, they can fear that it's maybe a healing modality that will take them away from all the stuff that they have learned before. There's almost like this sense of like, oh, great, I've got to learn a new modality and disregard everything that I've learned before. And what I'd say to that is Archetypal Apothecary and our remedies are absolutely complementary to other healing therapies. And I say this because, like, homeopathy can be used with anything. Like, all of the stuff that we've talked about, all the wisdom bodies complement other things. Like, this really is about learning to empower our use of all the things that we have learned before. It's a new way of working with the healing that you've already learned and embodied, if you are somebody who has worked with healing modalities. And even if you're just somebody who's on a healing journey and you've done other modalities as well, like, absolutely nothing that you have studied or done or embodied or journeyed with will be wasted. This really is about kind of like superpowering how we journey with other healing modalities as well. It's a bit like me with my shamanic healing with my guide. So again, I think that's really important to speak to, because it's something that can often have women feeling like, oh, well, you know, is it going to conflict with the other stuff that I've done before, or make it, or render it useless? Nobody wants to make 7 years of work. Quick fix is useless. Yeah. And talking about quick fixes, the other thing that can come up and be a stumbling block for women as they start to think about journeying into archetypal remedy work is that the time that it takes to heal. So because we're used to wanting that quick fix, those quick fixes can feel easier, they can feel more relieving to outsource our healing to others. And in response to this one, I'm just absolutely devoted to coming from a path of integrity here. And that is, I am not offering a quick fix, because there isn't one. Healing, as I said, is a lifetime's work. It's probably something that you've got embodied experience of it being lifetime's work. Like, I'm sure you're not here listening thinking, no, my healing's done. Like, it is a lifetime's work. It will never be done. My healing will never be done. We expand and we can hold more. And so it creates healing in many ways, but there's still always going to be wounds, the wounds that we're here to experience in this lifetime, that will keep coming back. And so I don't pretend that this is something that can be learned and done quickly. But as I said, what it will do and what it will provide to you is the freedom to heal and expand yourself and journey deeper into your own soul purpose. And really, you can learn the tools to heal yourself within a year, and you can become a healer in 3 years if that is what is aligned. So to put it into context, it took me a decade to become a healer, and 7 to become a healer. When I talk about becoming a healer, I mean to become an embodied, like, fully expressed healer. And 7 years of that was spent on quick fixes, which resulted in me wasting time, energy, money, which is why I've created this path for women to heal and become healers, and to learn how to heal themselves, because I want to stop women getting lost in doing that, in outsourcing their power. Because, as I said, my heart breaks for women who have walked the quick fix path and been left feeling less than empowered and like nothing has changed. And so, yeah, I really have to come from integrity on this, to say, yes, it will take time to learn to heal yourself this way, but you'll have also learned the tools for a lifetime of your own personal healing. The quick fix path will never offer you that. It'll just simply provide more numbing or reinforcing the idea that you're broken, or keep you in this cycle of going to other healers for a lifetime. So the deep work here is to learn to lovingly reclaim the parts of yourself that you're ashamed and disconnected from, and all is welcome, and learn to provide that for yourself. That is the way. Of course, then there's other things that come up, and women can have that fear of committing to that length of time investment. And so another thing to mention here in terms of the stumbling blocks is that if you don't have to commit to walking the whole path of healing right now. You also don't have to run away and live in the woods and sell your soul. So you can just start walking wherever you are with whichever archetypal remedy calls to you. So there's no requirement to keep walking the path. And I've made it as accessible as possible. So some of our initial steps are like 4-week group programs that start from £147 investment. And if you don't want to continue, you don't have to. It's what's really aligned for you. And it's the invitation to meet yourself where you are and follow what is aligned for you. So this is really about, again, when we talk about self-healing, this is very much about you learning to tune into your own wisdom. I think there's a couple more, one more maybe, and we'll be finished soon. Group programs. So there's often a fear, and a lot of the remedies that I serve are done via group programs. So archetypal remedies are great served in groups, and it's very much intentional part of the process that I do it that way. But often women can sort of stumble at the idea of joining those tender first steps in our path because they are group programs, and that feels vulnerable. And again, this makes sense. It makes so much sense. It's so welcome. And as I said, it's created intentionally that way as groups, to offer healing for this part of you that is here to learn to soften and open into your vulnerability, because again, that's where true healing lies. So the key thing here is that the groups that I run, that I hold, are not like any groups that you've likely ever experienced before. There may be the odd exception to that. I don't want to make this kind of really big claim, but generally, people describe my spaces as quite unique. You are totally held in a space of love where all is welcome, truly. Like if you'd been in my groups, you'd know how much was welcome. And in fact, it reminded me, when I was thinking about this particular point, of some of the beautiful words a woman who'd done Rosa recently shared. And she shared that she had also felt the fears of vulnerability when joining, and by the end was live streaming by video into the group, and it just shows you again the transformation that's created in that kind of environment. And the words that she said that working with Nicole has been nothing short of magical. The way she can hold a group with such love, warmth and care, her true unconditional love is so very healing. Which just fills my heart with so much love as I think about that. But yeah, and as I remember one of my own soul sisters joking before, you'll kind of start by feeling all the fear of even showing up, and by the end, that it'll be hard to believe you'll be live streaming from the bath, which made me chuckle. I remember her saying that. And the point is, fear is normal, I guess, when starting out in this path of working with archetypal remedies. So if you're hitting up against fear, this is all so welcome. It's so normal. And really, whenever fear is coming up, it is kind of some healing response. It's like this invitation into the exact work that we're talking about. It's an invitation into self-inquiry around what the fear is, which part of us wants love right now that's coming up to be seen, that can help us to move forwards into our healing tenderly. Like fear and resistance is actually the deep medicine for us, if we can look at it that way. So that is my invitation, if you are feeling the call. Yeah, I think I'm gonna complete now. I don't often do this in a podcast episode, but because there's so much to share in terms of like ways to begin, and there's ways to begin right from like free ways to begin through to like the deeper crucibles. So I'm just going to share a few ways that if you are feeling called to working with archetypal remedies, I'm going to share what's available, so that you can kind of step into that call to learn to heal your own soul and open to your more meaningful purpose, perhaps as a healer. So in October, I think it's the 19th of October, I probably should have checked that before, before coming on and speaking about it. It's mid-October anyway. We have a group program with Archetypal Rosa coming. So this is our most accessible entry point, aside from the free ways to walk the path, at just £147, where you can begin to learn to work with the archetypal remedies, and especially Archetypal Rose, which helps you to access, as I mentioned, self-love, softness. That it's that opening to your possibility. It's that opening to your soul potential, even and especially if that's terrifying, and learning to hold yourself in fear. So like tending your nervous system and really like honoring that sensitivity in you. So this is for both sensitive women who don't know their deeper purpose yet, and it's also for women who may have a sense that they're here to be a healer, who do have a deeper sense of their purpose. But we all need to journey with Archetypal Rosa, is my experience of the women that I've served. And this is a wonderful first step, and is also fine as well if you can't join us live, because there's recordings for each week's live circle, and much of the sharing happens in the community group that we have alongside it. In fact, that goes very deep. As I mentioned, a lot of the sharing, a lot of the stuff goes very, very deep in a really held and supportive way. So that's one way. I also have some very rare openings. I'm very excited about this, to work one-to-one that doesn't involve my normal 6-month commitment, which is another way I'm going to share in a minute. But I'm about to birth, just literally hot off the press, my archetypal soul remedy readings. So I'm opening up some very, very limited spaces, like maybe one a month, I think, to work one-to-one, which is very much, it's like 2 sessions that will work to create that clear roadmap that we talked about, on which archetypal remedies you are here to work with in the 4 layers to heal your soul and embody your soul purpose. So this consists of 1 consultation session to find out what your unique remedies are and what your 4 layers of remedies are, and 1 healing activation session and a booklet and guidance. And so in that session, we also go through some of the remedies and how to work with them. So very much that kind of guidance on how to work with and integrate each of your remedies and begin that journey for yourself. As I said, there'll only be 1 space a month for this, and it has a very, because it's new, it has a very special introductory investment of 377, which will go up at some point without notice. But for now, I just really want to honour that investment. It feels aligned, and just begin to I cannot wait for that offering. Actually, I'm very excited about it. The other ways, I have 2 spaces that have opened in my 6-month one-to-one container initiatrix, which is really that fully supported deep journey into learning to self-heal and discover your purpose with your particularly unique archetypal remedies. And with really deep support for 6 months. So alchemy calls are currently on offer if you'd like to know more. Again, there's no pressure if you have an alchemy call to join. It's really a call to explore where you are now, where you want to go, and what will support you in that, whether that's something that I can help you with in the Archetypal Apothecary path, or it may well be something else that I know of, if that's something that is aligned and Archetypal Apothecary and the remedies aren't. So I'm totally open. I'm currently in conversation with several women. So if you would like to explore, do let me know by reaching out personally, and I can share, we can book a call. We also have, because it's deeply, deeply important to me to make this as accessible as possible, which is why I provide the podcast, but we have regular free events like this one. So you can step into the path a little bit more, take those tender steps in if you're kind of new to it and you're not sure yet, get more of a feel for it. So there is one event that we've already run that I would highly recommend. It's the Rosa Taster event, which is right at the bottom of our Archetypal Rosa page. So I'll share that with you in the show notes, and in the links under the live recording as well. So yeah, the Rosa Taster is like an hour ritual experience. I'd highly recommend that as a first step. We also have a free live monthly healing ritual where I serve some of the other archetypal remedies that are very much in alignment with the moon energies. So this is very much like a healing that we do each month with a different remedy. You can check those out under the Manifesting with the Moon healing circles for more on that on our website. And there are also, just to share, a few other exciting ways in progress for next year. As I said, I've been to London yesterday, so this is very fresh, but I'm very excited about the possibility of creating next year some archetypal healings in London and online. So if you are feeling called to find out more, there will be something at whatever level you are at in your healing journey. So please reach out and register your interest, because I can always, again, if there's nothing that's aligning for you right now, I can always keep you on a list if something comes up that could be aligned as well. So if you are feeling the call and you're not sure where to begin, I am here to help. So you can reach out to me directly and I will help you discover your own wisdom about what is aligned for you as you step into your journey of self-healing. So you can do this via my website, which is www.nicolebarton.co.uk, or you could also use secretwitch.co.uk because that will also take you to the same place. Or you can reach out to me by email, which is info@nicolebarton.co.uk, which is spelled NICOLEBARTON. Or you can message me on social media. So we're at Archetypal Apothecary or at I am Nicole Barton on most places. Of course, other resources on our website, there are all sorts of resources, including our blog. So our blog contains so much wisdom. It's got most of my writing and channelings for sensitive souls who are healing themselves. We also send out a lunar newsletter each new moon, which has tips, wisdom, moon rituals, and all the best bits of content from the month to help you begin walking the path that way. You can also sign up for that via our website. It's nicolebarton.co.uk/subscribe. And of course, given we're here recording the podcast, I couldn't not include the podcast, could I? So I think we're nearing 70 episodes now of our Secret Witch show. So that in itself feels like just a gorgeous thing to honour and celebrate, and really deeply appreciating all our loyal listeners and our new listeners. So yeah, loads of juicy topics, both with myself and with guests. There's so many gorgeous healing guests who are deeply aligned with all of the work that we're doing. So yeah, dig in if you haven't already listened to that. But other than that, I am going to complete. I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to complete with a quote from Carl Jung, which really kind of encapsulates the work that we do in this path to a T. So he said, "Becoming who we truly are is the privilege of a lifetime." And really, that is just so true. And I see that as I share this work more and more, though it's been a challenge to provide some kind of language for it all. I can't even tell you what challenge it's been to like bring this all together in some kind of way that makes sense. There's a lot to explain here. It really is me being the living embodiment of becoming the full expression of my unique archetypal remedy. And I just want to leave you with that, because that is what is available for you as well. So thank you for listening. And yeah, if you do have any questions, please do reach out to me. I'm happy to go deeper. Lots of love.
This was one of my favourite episodes because it's all about what's in my heart, the archetypal remedies. Here are my takeaways. Archetypal remedies offer a unique modality that is grounded in the three ancient healing wisdom bodies and lineages of homeopathy, archetypal psychology, and energy healing. This unique combination of them offers a path to true deep self-healing or soul healing that stimulates healing and kindles deep self-inquiry to help you heal yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, as well as discovering your gifts, and actualizing your soul purpose in the world. We all have the power and wisdom to heal ourselves, and this really is the why of Archetypal Remedies. This path is unique in that it helps women to learn to heal themselves, helping you activate your own inner apothecary rather than relying on other healers. It superpowers the way we experience other healings because it allows us to integrate them more deeply ourselves. So many women try and fix themselves when the truth is we aren't broken. Real healing is grounded in self love and the reclamation of fragmented, wounded parts of ourselves or our souls that have been unconsciously shamed and suppressed. And archetypal remedies help us to heal these parts of ourselves and peel back the layers of our wounding until we return to knowing our wholeness. Archetypal remedies work on the principle that like cures like, which also explains why we magnetize and feel a draw to certain people, because people are remedies. Archetypal remedies also offer us a roadmap for our healing and soul purpose that's similar to other personality profiling models like human design. We each have 4 layers of archetypal remedies that help us know our natural makeup from birth, the unique remedy we came to live out, our soul purpose, and the surface and ancestral layer remedies and wounds that need healing for us to fully actualize our gifts. Fear is a natural part of the process, and resistance can mean that you are ready to begin the journey rather than meaning that you're not, which is what most women think when they feel the call to self healing. The deep invitation when fear arises is to go into the self inquiry of the path around what the fear is and which part of you wants love to tenderly move forwards. Healing the fear is a huge part of the work with archetypal remedies, and it's done with the tenderness and softness and nervous system tending that archetypal remedy Rosa, the rose, offers.
If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.